Negotiations over an immigration deal continued in the United States Senate today, despite opposition from former President Trump and his allies on the Hill. And we may soon know what will be included in the final proposal, because the text of the bill is expected this week. NBC News correspondent Ryan Nobles has more.
Bipartisan senators are working on the border legislation President Biden vowed would help him deal with the crisis, including granting him new emergency authority.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
If Joe Biden truly wanted to secure the border, he doesn't really need a bill. I did it with the current laws.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump urging Congress to torpedo the deal for not being tough enough.
Please blame it on me, please, because they were getting ready to pass a very bad bill.
Among the provisions, it could still allow up to 5,000 migrants per day to cross the border. But Democrats and some Republicans believe Trump wants to kill the bill to boost his presidential prospects.
But even if it passes the Senate, House Speaker Mike Johnson has called the bill dead on arrival. Let's discuss with Basil Smikle, Democratic strategist and former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party, and Stuart Stevens, a veteran of the Mitt Romney and George W. Bush presidential campaigns. He's now with the Lincoln Project. Basil, so President Biden says that if this immigration deal were law today, that he would shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. That is something I did not think I would hear from a Democratic president in advance of an election year. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I had the same reaction. You know, it is true that he has signed more executive orders related to immigration than his predecessor, Donald Trump, but he's tried to do it in a far more humane fashion. Just remember the Muslim ban very early in Trump's tenure. You know, the attempt is to try to fix this problem in a way that is a lot more thoughtful, and that despite some of the concerns that local mayors have, to try to actually work with local governments to fix the problem as it's migrated into these states. But I was surprised to hear that he's taken such a strong tone. I imagine that immigration rights activists are not going to be happy about this. But, you know, this is that election year language that tends to come out. At the end of the day, I do think something more humane will come of it. But in the meantime, you know, what we have is a bill that'll probably get through the Senate, but will, as the Speaker has said, will probably die in the House.
Stuart, it sounds like Democrats have finally gone on offense on immigration, so much so that Donald Trump is saying that he is just happy to take the blame for stymieing these border negotiations. Do you think that could backfire on him?
Look, I think part of the whole process here that the Biden campaign has to go through is to remind people that they're running against a guy who was president. Donald Trump ran on immigration more than any president in modern history. Remember, he was going to get Mexico to pay for a wall. And the disaster that Biden is having to deal with and the problems are because of the fact that Trump didn't deal with it. And Trump controlled Congress and the White House for a while. It's complete failure on his part. So, you know, I think a couple of things here just get lost, and that is just a human tragedy on two fronts. People are dying in Ukraine because of this. Terrible, horrible tragedies. And that a Republican Party is complicit in that and on the side of Putin, I just find it just absolutely shameful. And the border is something, immigration has been a problem for, 40 years, 50 years. It should be solved, but you can't solve it unless you have both parties that want to solve it. And the Republicans don't want to solve it.
Both parties at the table. And we cannot lose Ukraine in this, because the only reason this is a conversation right now at this level is because aid for Ukraine, who is literally fighting a war against Vladimir Putin and Russia, is currently being held up. Basil, I want to get you to weigh in on House Republicans, because they've released an impeachment articles for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Okay, they've accused him of, quote unquote, disregarding the law. I think that is pretty rich, considering that they are stonewalling an effort to strengthen immigration law. And it has been Secretary Mayorkas he's done more interviews. He's gone before Congress more than, I think, just about any cabinet secretary, and has been very much so willing to sit at the table and negotiate to help, bring some relief to the border.
Yeah, they're accusing him of high crimes and misdemeanors. Isn't that rich? Because where was the accountability when Republican governors like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis sent migrants on a bus without telling them where they were going, and just sent them to these northeastern states? Where was the accountability there? This is not about getting to the truth or actually fixing the problem, a decades-old problem, as said before. It's really about playing this election year politics. There were reports that Republicans were concerned that they had no policy to talk about in 2024, and yet they're spending all of this time trying to go through this impeachment process. And I actually want to add another layer to what you said earlier in terms of this, the immigration being tied to Ukraine, because there's another layer as well. The fact that Republicans thought they would be able to take a victory lap when Roe was taken down. And they weren't. It actually backfired tremendously. And now they've shifted the conversation, or tried to immigration. That's why we're here. They're here because they've run out of things to say and do. So they're going to pick this next battle by trying to impeach someone who's actually been working with local governments to try to fix this problem, but also showing fealty to Donald Trump. And that really is the humanitarian shame of it.
Stuart, quickly then, what do you think the next 3-4 months looks like when it comes to Congress?
Look, I think Congress is in this year Mama 2 thing that, they want to impeach somebody because president got impeached twice. I refuse to accept the fact that the United States is not going to back Ukraine. So this is a weird little part of the world where I remain an optimist, because I know a lot of these Republican senators, they really do want to help Ukraine. They hate Vladimir Putin, despite what they say and the position they're placed in. So I think they're probably going to get a deal, despite everything that Johnson says. I think something is going to happen here, and they're going to pass it, and that's just going to be one part of this, but it'll be a huge part if they can pass this monumental appropriation bill to help Ukraine save itself.